You're not the boss of me now. You're not the boss of me now. You're not the boss of me now, and you're not so big. Life is unfair. Welcome to the Malcolm in the Middle special here on Temperamental. You should watch it with your eyes and listen to it with your ears. Yeah! You can come up here. I will share my seat with you. I'm nice like that. Get up here. Yo, what's up, guys? It's episode 56 of Temperamental. And yeah, I know. Oh my gosh, my mic is loose. What a terrible way to start. Kevin is here. Girl Kevin is here. Kevin is now gone. So never mind about Kevin being here. What's up, guys? Episode 56. And I know that this is a podcast, right? And podcasts typically, historically, are listened to with your ears. They're an audio thing. But this is the Malcolm in the Middle special. And so I'm going to be like showing clips and talking about stuff. So it's going to be visually stimulating. So if you have a chance, you should watch it on Spotify or on YouTube. Those are the two places the video goes out. So I'm just saying, yo, watch it with your eyes because, you know, I want to talk about this episode. All right, let's just dive right in. I've done a couple specials here on Temperamental with Lisa Foiles, and one was the sugar and coffee special, and then I did a Claudia special where I did like a deep dive into those very memorable sketches, right? Like when people interview me, they pretty much bring up like sugar and coffee, Claudia, and Malcolm in the Middle. Those are like the three things that people mostly bring up. So it only makes sense that we're now going to do a Malcolm in the Middle special where I can really dive in to this very famous episode. Yeah, let's just get started. So I was featured in an episode of a show called Malcolm in the Middle, which is a dark comedy sitcom. And the episode was called If Boys Were Girls. And to give you a little, I'm sure you're familiar with Malcolm in the Middle. It's like one of the best shows ever made, dog. Like it is so good. It's so good. And it starred Bryan Cranston, who you now know from Breaking Bad and Frankie Muniz. And here, let me just read. Can you play the like the opening credits or something of the show so that I can just read everybody's names?
Yes, no, maybe. I don't know. Can you repeat the question?
I don't know if you can hear that, but her chewing is so loud. Okay, so it starred obviously Frankie Muniz, Bryan Cranston, Eric Sullivan, Jane Kaczmarek, Christopher Masterson, and Justin Burfield, all insanely talented actors. And it's so funny because I had these connections to Malcolm in the Middle before I was ever on the show. So my good friend and co-star Kyle Sullivan had been playing Dabney on Malcolm in the Middle for years before he joined the cast of all that. In fact, he was the only seasoned actor on the show. We were all noobs, right? All of us had done maybe like one commercial or like a bad pilot. Like I think I did like a Dunkin' Donuts commercial and a Gladware commercial. And one day I'll go into how horrific that Dunkin' Donuts commercial was, because let me tell you, it's a miracle I even still eat donuts. But somehow the sugar monster in me just persevered. They're like, I know you were traumatized by eating 85 donuts in the span of an hour in this commercial, but you know what? We still like fat and sugar, so we're just gonna keep eating those. So all of us on the cast of all that were like noobs, right? We were new to acting, but Kyle came in like seasoned professional because he had been working for a long time. And Malcolm in the Middle was one of his claims to fame. So we already kind of had a connection to Malcolm in the Middle through Kyle. And then Frankie Muniz happened to be the first ever guest star on our seasons of All That, which was season 7 through season 10. So because Nickelodeon was getting a brand new cast of All That, they wanted to have a funny sketch about how we were all found, right? And so I can't really remember exactly how it went, but something about like Frankie Muniz was talking to like an executive at Nickelodeon, and he was like, you better go find the brand new cast of all that or something. I don't know. But for some reason there was an urgency, right? He had to go find the new cast of all that quickly. And so I was actually the first person he found. I like to brag about that.
Stop. What's your name?
Lisa?
Can I take her?
Please.
Come on.
And the first thing he did was he stopped a car, and it was like a mom driving, and then I was the passenger, and he like yanked me out of the car. And then we went and got Jack, who was like hanging out in a dumpster, and then Brian Hearn, who was like selling Girl Scout cookies or something. Like we were all in silly situations, and he pulled all of us from our different walks of life, brought us to this Nickelodeon executive, and he's like, here's your new cast of all that.
Meet the new cast of all that. Hey, whoa.
Excuse me? You can't just grab us and expect us to be on TV.
Yeah. I was using the bathroom. Yeah.
So we got to work with Frankie for that first episode, and that was a big deal for us because it was the first celebrity any of us had really ever worked with. Like I said, we were brand new to the show, brand new to acting. So just to encounter a celebrity was a really big deal to us. And Frankie was super cool. And he was like our age, but way more famous. So it was just cool being around him because he was such a professional, you know? So I feel like I learned a lot from him, just working with him from that first episode. And then fast forward, I want to say it was, gosh, I need to know what year it was. Okay, so it was 2003, and, I'd been in Hollywood for a couple years. I was doing all that, and it was the off season. And when you're, when you're a type, right? Like I was young, white girl, child actor, right? Like I was like girl next door type, white girl, whatever. Like you kind of start auditioning with the same actors over and over and over again. So, I'd run into the same group of girls at almost every audition I went out for. That was just, it was just a tight-knit community. I guess it was kind of it was like a small town. I feel like now it's totally different. Now there's, you do these online auditions and everybody puts themselves on self-tape, and like they could audition like 1,000 girls for one role, but that wasn't really the case back in the day. I feel like there was just kind of like, it almost felt like there was like 30 of us that just kind of kept seeing each other at auditions. And actually Chelsea Brummett was one of the girls at this particular audition for an episode of Malcolm in the Middle. Remember, my agent sent me out for this audition, and I read the sides, which is the portion of the script that you read in an audition. They're called the sides. And I saw that it was called If Boys Were Girls, meaning they were looking for female versions of all of the Malcolm in the Middle boys. And I was being sent out for Reese. And my mom was so clever, right? Like so Reese in the show, Justin Burfield, had kind of like spiky hair. And so my mom did this awesome thing where she kind of like did a half up, half down with my hair. And then the half that was up, she kind of like spiked it up with gel. So even though I was still girly, I kind of had this like spiky hair, which was kind of reminiscent of the Reese character, which I thought was super clever. And I guess it worked. I guess I had the look. I guess I had the chops because I went through the first audition and I got a call back. Went through the second audition and I got a call back. And they kept narrowing it down to find these 3 girls. And I think Chelsea almost made it to the end. It was one of those like, when she was finally cut, I was like, no, because she and I were such good friends on the set of all that. And that's just how it goes though, right? They just didn't, she made it pretty close to the end, but she got cut about when there was maybe like 10 girls left. And with those 10 girls, they kept matching us up in different triplets, right? Because they had to have Dewey, you had to have Malcolm, and you had to have Reese. So I kept going in the room with different girls, reading the same scene over and over. And it wasn't until the very, very last time that I went into the room with the director, with the producers, that they said, "Can you read for Malcolm?" And I'm like, sure. Because you always say sure, right? When you're an actor in Hollywood, it doesn't matter what they ask you in the audition. You say yes. Can you ride a horse? Yes, of course. Can you carve statues out of marble? Yeah, do it all the time on the weekends. I did it just actually right before I got here. It's in my car. Do you want to see it? Are you a championship golfer? Yes, I am. Tiger Woods is my father, actually. Thanks for asking. Yeah, it's just kind of actor life, right? Like whatever they say, you say yes. And even though I had as much anxiety as a child as I do now, I like to be in control when it comes to acting. I like to know my lines. I like to know exactly what's going to happen. And so to kind of be thrown that curveball at the very end of this audition process, it kind of freaked me out a little bit. But thankfully, because I had read as Reese so many times and read with all these girls reading for female Malcolm, I knew everybody's lines, right? You just know everybody's lines. So it wasn't that hard for me to switch from Reese to Malcolm in the very final audition. And I guess that's all they needed to see because I booked it, I want to say like the next day. Like the next day, they called my agent and they're like, "You got it. You're Mallory. You're Mallory, the female version of Malcolm. And we're going to get you to a hair salon in the next week because we're going to dye your hair." Which is super fun. So I showed up at a hair salon that the Fox Studios had sent me to dye my hair. And that's where I met Mimi Paley, who played the female version of Reese. And she was getting highlights put in her hair to look more like Reese. And I was getting my hair dyed brown to look more like Malcolm because at the time I had red hair. So it's just so cool because they saw something in me, right? Because, usually you look for an actor. If you're a casting director, you look for an actor who's just like ready to go, right? Like, okay, she's got the right hair color. She's got the right skin type. She's got the right eye color. Okay, she's tall enough. Perfect. Book her. Let's go. But they didn't do that. They saw me, and even though I had the wrong hair color, they're like, we can work with this. Like, we can turn her into the Malcolm we need her to be, even though she's not there yet. But they like saw that. They saw the potential, which I love, which is super cool. Because there's definitely been times when I've lost out on roles, like because I had freckles. In my head, I'm like, but you could put makeup on them. But you could put makeup on the freckles. There's such thing as makeup, and you can cover the freckles. So maybe hire me anyway. So it's so dumb, honestly. Like I've missed out on roles because I was too tall. I've missed out on roles because my skin wasn't clear enough. Like honestly, like. There was one time when an agency literally turned me down for representation because I had acne. Like, there you go. That's Hollywood, baby. Like, it didn't matter. Like, I was a teenager and I had acne and I came in and I nailed the audition for that particular acting agent. And everything was great. My talent was there. My resume was there. And then they just called my manager and they're like, we can't represent her because her skin is not clear. She has acne and we can't take her on. I'm like, wow. Cool. Really felt good. My self-esteem was just through the roof after that. Like, I see it, dog. Like, I know I have it, right? Like, I already know. But then to just have a professional agency being like, that's the reason we don't want to represent you, made me feel really good as a teenager. But anyway, I digress. So I met Mimi. We got our hair dyed. We were all ready to play female Malcolm, female Reese. We show up on set, and that's when I get to meet Jeanette McCurdy. And she played female Dewey. So she was my little sister on the show. And let me tell you, this girl became my little sister in real life. Like, she and I just connected immediately. And she was so sweet. She was so sweet, and she was so, like, fresh and new to the industry and so talented. And I could just see so much potential in her even then. Like, I think this episode of Malcolm was one of her first bigger roles. And she just handled it like a pro. Like, she just always knew her lines. She was always so sweet, so kind, like always just where she needed to be, never messed around. When we were in the trailer doing our schoolwork, like she would focus. Like, I'm just like, this girl's a star. Like, she's awesome. I really like Jeanette. And we had the same kind of sense of humor. So, you know, we just really hit it off. And she always loved Nickelodeon, and she loved the fact that I was on Nickelodeon. And I remember actually after Malcolm was filmed, I took her to Nick on Sunset and like gave her a tour and like had her meet everybody, which was before iCarly. As you know, Jeanette McCurdy later went on to book the role of Sam on iCarly, which became the biggest children's television show like ever of all time. So it's so funny that when I knew her, she had stars in her eyes just knowing that I was on all that, you know, like, and then fast forward, like, okay, iCarly was like biggest show ever. Like, girl, like, you got this. So sweet. So I loved hanging out with Jeanette on the set. And yeah, I remember rehearsal went really well, and they gave us this specific note. I remember this really stuck out because all of us in the audition were going very campy with it. We were going super Brady Bunch with these roles. Because let me just give you a little rundown of the episode. The episode is that Jane Kasmerick, Lois, the mom, is pregnant and she already has 4 sons. So she's imagining, it's a Valentine's Day episode, she's imagining what it would be like to have all daughters instead of all sons. And so we have dream scenes in this episode, dream sequences, where she often just kind of, her mind drifts and all of a sudden her 3 boys in front of her morph into girls, and the scene plays out exactly how it would have if there were females instead of males. And the first scene is that the boys are fighting over a pencil and they're just like wrestling and they're like trying to kick the crap out of each other. And then Lois just kind of drifts off, and then she imagines, oh, she has 3 girls. And now the 2 oldest girls, Mallory and Reese, you know, Reese is like, why are you so mad? It's just a pencil.
Renee, please don't touch it.
Mallory, you're being silly. It's just a pen. I was gonna do homework with it. Unless there's a reason this pen's important to you.
It's stupid.
No, it isn't, Mallory. You can tell her.
Daisy's right. You can tell me. How come you never say what's on your mind?
Yeah, you're always so quiet.
And Mallory's like, I can't tell you. It's stupid. And she's like, you can tell me anything. I'm your sister. And I'm like, okay, well, I have a crush on this boy and he chewed on this pencil a little and that's why I want it. And then Reese is super sweet and they're like, wow, that was the worst fight we've had in years. And then they all give each other a big hug. Now, this was one of the scenes we read in the audition. And me and the other girls, all the other actresses, were playing it very Brady Bunch, very over the top campy. And then in the rehearsal, they were like, don't play it that way. Don't play it like that. Play it way more real. Keep it real. Don't go over the top. Marsha Brady, Jan Brady, just very authentic. Keep it sincere. And I loved that note because immediately we all shifted and we played it more sincere, and it totally landed. Like, I remember that feeling of that first rehearsal with me and Reese, like talking to each other, playing it more sincere and more authentic, and just looking at her like, oh, I think we're nailing this. I think we're totally crushing this. This is way funnier. I actually talked about this in the last podcast episode about comedy acting and how you learn from people like Charlie Chaplin and Gene Wilder that when the scene itself is ridiculous and silly, you don't have to be silly and ridiculous. You just play it authentic. And then the comedy will come through. And then somebody in the YouTube comments, I'm so sorry, was it Adam? I forget who left me the comment about how Steve Carell has always said that like actors should not know they're in a comedy. Like you just play it as honest and sincere as you can when you're doing comedy. And so that's how we played it. And it just felt right and it felt good and we were ready to film. And it was super fun because we all had outfits that mimicked the boys, but like girlier, right? It's so funny because in the sugar and coffee episode and in the Claudia episode of Temperamental, the specials that I did, I was like wearing wardrobe from the show, and I had memorabilia from Sugar and Coffee and Slumber Party, but I don't have any memorabilia from Malcolm in the Middle. I have nothing. Like, I don't have any wardrobe from the show. I don't have no props. Like, I have nothing. So I would just wear my Death Clock shirt instead. But yeah, so Malcolm had like this green jean jacket and like a yellow shirt. And so I had a green jean jacket and a yellow shirt, but my yellow shirt had like bedazzled rhinestones on it. And, Reese had a blue hoodie. So Renee. So Mimi Paley was the female Reese. So Renee had like a blue hoodie. And then Jeanette, who was Daisy, the female Dewey, she had like a sweater with like I forget what her sweater had on it, but like Dewey's had like a rocket ship. Very similar, right? We're just like, it's like a crossplay. It's crossplay. So we had an amazing time filming this show. And if you remember, Bryan Cranston was in a fat suit for this episode because in the dream sequences, having girls made him so stressed out that he just ate constantly and gained 200 pounds.
Oh, look. Hi, honey. We're over here.
Daddy, you know how you like to make me happy?
Yes?
Well, there is the cutest little makeup kit at the Clinique counter.
Oh, honey, no. No, that absolutely not. I don't even like you wearing makeup, and that stuff is so overpriced.
So funny. And as the episode progresses, you start to see little hints of the evilness and manipulation of women. Yeah, boys are, brash and violent and just loud and obnoxious. But hey, they're not as cunning and evil as girls are. That's what Lois learns. By the end. Moral of the story, basically. Girls are evil. And I totally agree with all of it. But as the dream sequences continue, you start to see me, manipulate Hal a little bit and kind of use a baby voice on him. And like, Daddy, you promised I was going to get that makeup from the Clinique counter. And he's so stressed out by having so much estrogen and women, just around him that he's just constantly eating. And my favorite thing about that is the fat suit that Bryan Cranston had to wear in that scene caused him to be so sweaty that they had to put a vacuum down his back to suck out the sweat in between every scene. It was so gross. Like in the cafeteria scene, we were all sitting there and, you could just tell this poor man with all of these prosthetics, just, the big giant cheeks and, just everything, his arms, his belly, just everything. Massive amounts of prosthetics. And then they had to come in with this vacuum and shove it down his spine and just suck out all the sweat. And we were so grossed out, but Bryan Cranston was such a good sport. He was such a good sport, man. The most professional actor I think I've ever worked with in my life. So funny, so just down for it, right? Like not a single complaint from this man. And all these prosthetics. Dude, he's the freaking best. But no wonder he started to make meth because I wouldn't want to wear that fat suit anymore either. So, some kind of behind the scenes stuff was, I remember when we were on the set of All That. So going back to All That, when Frankie Muniz was a guest star on my show before I was a guest star on Frankie Muniz's show. I remember he definitely had the hots for Chelsea, for sure. And of course he did. Everybody did. She was like the hot girl on All That. I was like the cute one, whatever. So all the boys that came on the show, all the guest stars, they all would flock to Chelsea. Of course, she was gorgeous. She still is. But I was always just like, aw, nobody likes me. Like me, my Jan Brady freckles and my buck teeth. And it's just like not I was cute, but I wasn't like hot, right? Like guys weren't looking at me just like, yeah. I was definitely like the weird girl next door. I still am actually. But yeah, so I think Frankie definitely had the hots for Chelsea. And then when we were on the set of Malcolm, every once in a while Frankie would come say hi to us in our trailer, and he definitely had the hots for Mimi. So Mimi played Reese, Mimi Paley, amazing actress and singer, incredible singer. And I think she like went on a date with Frankie. I don't know. I think he gave her a ride in one of his super nice sports cars because Frankie had all these really nice cars. He was super into cars. Didn't he like race in like he like raced cars for a while, right? Recently in the last couple of years? I don't know. Don't hold me to that. But I think he did. And he had these super nice cars. I think he took Mimi on a ride. And I was just like, okay, have fun. Me and Jeanette will just be here doing our homework, waiting to go on set. Have fun, you guys. Oh, is that a convertible? Oh, cool. Oh, watch your hair. It's really windy, isn't it? Okay. Oh, wow, they're going so fast. That's pretty awesome. It's not even like I had a crush on Frankie. It was just the fact that I was just so used to any male guest star just being attracted to my co-star, never me. So funny. But I, hanging out with Jeanette actually made it better. Because I was like, who cares about Frankie? And, we like Mimi, but she's gorgeous. And we're just going to be weird girls here in our trailer. And the final scenes were filmed at a mall. And it's like the Glen, I forget which mall it is. In fact, this is going to be fun. I have the Wikipedia for this episode on my phone. And I thought it'd be fun if I ran through the trivia questions, like the fun facts that they have here. And I could compare and contrast them to my personal experience being in the episode. All right, let's start. Life is unfair. Trivia. All right. This episode won an Emmy Award for Outstanding Single Camera Picture Editing in a comedy series. Yes, it did. This is an Emmy Award winning episode of Malcolm in the Middle, which I found out years later. I didn't find out when it happened. I found out like years later. And I'm like, you couldn't have edited without actors to edit, so where's my Emmy? No. The editors, the whole crew was so incredible. And of course, the editors were amazing. The editors made that episode what it was, so they absolutely deserved the Emmy. This episode features gender-bent versions of the 4 Wilkerson boys. Both Francis and Renee are revealed to be pregnant, and Daisy is a manipulative bully. Doesn't say anything about my character. But yeah, that is true. So at the very, in that very, intense climactic scene when Lois is realizing that maybe having girls isn't as warm and fuzzy as she was hoping for, we're like yelling at her in a department store. And then me and Reese like get in a big fight, and I'm like, "You slept with my boyfriend," and she's like, "Yeah, well, it's because you didn't let me use your hairbrush." And then Jeanette was like, "Yeah, well, you're pregnant," and it's like, "Oh, it's not my fault because sex is wrong and immoral and fun." And wait, no,
That is ridiculous. I'm not pregnant because I know that sex is wrong and immoral and fun. No, wait, it's
all right, Renee. It's good that they know. I'm ready for teenage marriage.
He's the father? You only slept with him because you knew that I liked him.
Maybe you should have asked to use my hairbrush first.
Okay, you don't have that hair.
The whole scene is so hilarious. And then Francis walks in, which is Masterson. What's his name? Christopher Masterson, who is playing Francis. He walks in with just like his own prosthetics. So, Bryan Cranston had all his prosthetics, and then Francis had like prosthetic bosoms and walks in with this like trailer trash husband who like smacks her on the butt. And, I don't want to spoil it because it's so funny. But yeah, a lot of prosthetics. Yeah, a lot of gender bent stuff. This episode is considered the most popular Malcolm in the Middle episode. That's not surprising. You know, it's funny because I was on a show for 4 years that was on primetime Saturday night on Nickelodeon. And obviously a lot of people know me from that, but I was only on one episode of Malcolm in the Middle, this episode. And I almost get recognized more for this one than all that. Like, people are constantly wanting to ask me about this episode. And yeah, I believe it. I remember Access Hollywood did a whole feature on this episode while we were filming it. They came to the set and they interviewed us and they filmed a whole bunch behind the scenes. And I was like, I don't think this is normal. They don't do this for every episode, but they don't. Yeah, it was a special one. This is the first Valentine's Day themed episode. Yep. The mall scenes were filmed at Westfield Fashion Square in Sherman Oaks. Yes, that's where it was. Christopher Masterson, who plays Francis, is the only actor to play his female counterpart in this episode by dressing in drag. Yeah. And I'll never forget being on set and then seeing him turn the corner with his wig, makeup, prosthetics, and we all just died laughing. It was so on point. Let's see. Although Reese is a unisex name, they changed his female counterpart to Renee. Yes. What else? This episode reveals that Lois's favorite kind of chocolate is coconut. Even more of a fun fact, Lois was actually pregnant. Jane Kasmerick was actually pregnant during the episodes of Malcolm in the Middle that talk about her being pregnant. Like, they wrote it into the show. So in between scenes, you know, she's just staying calm and taking it easy and having a seat because she's pregnant. She's like super pregnant. She's pregnant in the show, pregnant in real life. And the sweetest woman I've ever met in my whole life. I couldn't believe the switch that happened when they called action. And she was able to go from the sweetest woman I've ever met to like Lois, like crazy Lois. Like, she was such a professional. Gosh, what a class act. Despite Lois realizing that having 4 daughters wouldn't be any better for her than having 4 sons, she still wishes that her next child would end up being a girl. That's the big, like, that's the button at the end, right? The punctuation of the episode is at the very end. After realizing having girls is no easier than having boys, and they're manipulative and they're evil and they're cunning, she still says, I hope you're a girl. Which I always thought was so awesome. Anything else here? Nope, that's all we got for trivia. Yeah, so most of those are accurate. But yeah, it was such a professional set to be on. And of course, I didn't realize what a big deal it was when I was on the set. I was just trying to stay in the moment and have fun and do my best. And looking back now, I'm like, man, that was a really like pivotal moment in my acting career. Like, what a cool gig. In fact, I just did a podcast the other day and they thought that like Malcolm in the Middle was what launched me. They were like, so you got your start on Malcolm in the Middle, and then from that you got all that and all these other shows. And I'm like, actually, no, that came way later, but people know me from that specific episode. And I got to tell you, it was such an honor to be on this show, because I loved what it represented. You know, I grew up watching Full House and Step by Step, and you're watching these kind of dream-like depictions of your typical American family where everybody is well-dressed and everybody's super nice and everything's peachy keen and you all just hug it out at the end, no matter what your problems are. And, I liked that, but there were times when my family had a decent amount of money, and there were times when my family had very little money. So I got to experience both of those. And Malcolm in the Middle, to me, was one of the first sitcoms that depicted a real working class family. You know, the jealousy of the richer families wanting to have what they have, their actual problems, trouble with grades, just trouble with the law. Like the policeman knew them by name, right? Like it was just this perfect dark comedy that I hadn't seen before. And I loved that that was on TV. Like really representing that class of people that's in such a relatable way. So it was an honor to be a part of it. The only regret that I have is that I could never recur. I couldn't be a recurring character because I played such a specific character. I played female Malcolm, so like she's not gonna appear in another episode of the series. That's it. Like I couldn't really come back and revive that character. But it's fine. That time on the set was so fun and so impactful, and I'm glad it happened. And later, I think it was maybe the next year. I forget. All the years kind of run together. But it was my season 10 of All That, and we did the big reunion special, the big 10th anniversary special of All That, where Keenan and Kel came back, and Josh Server, and Danny Tamborelli, and Elisa Reyes, and Katrina Johnson, and Mark Saul. Like everybody came back, and the whole special was hosted by Frankie Muniz.
I'm gonna need to see your pass.
All right, well, who are you anyway?
Name's Thelma Stump, and I'm a bodyguard.
Oh, that's very nice, but I got a show to do.
So yet again, he comes back, and he's back on my show. So, yeah, it was just, it was such a cool experience. And I loved it. And, I've kind of stayed in touch a little bit with Mimi Paley and Jeanette McCurdy through the years, just little messages here and there. I know Mimi had a baby and she's like so happy. And, I miss Jeanette so much. I just, every once in a while we'll just send a short message. Like we'll try to meet up, but then she's always traveling or I'm traveling and we just haven't made it work yet. But, gosh, I just wish those two the most happiness that they could possibly have. And one more fun fact that I literally just remembered right now. I have to find this. So, IMDb, if boys were girls, in the final dream sequence of the girls, the guy that I have a crush on comes into the scene and admits that him and Reese are going to have a baby together. And I'm, of course, devastated. And the guy who played that character was the original voice of Arnold on Hey Arnold. And I'm going to find him right now. Hold on, I'm going to find it. Everybody stay with me. Gosh, where is he? What is his name? He was so nice. And then when he told me, Torrin Caudell? Is that him? Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, I think his name was Torrin. Okay, hold on. Torrin. There it is. Lane Torrin Caudell. So he goes by Lane Torrin. He's an actor and a musician. What is he up to? Dude. Oh my gosh. I'm going to follow him on Instagram. Oh my gosh, he's going to be at SplatCon? You guys, he's going to be at SplatCon. Shut up. I'm going to be at SplatCon. I'm going to get to see him again. Dude, I'm so glad I did this episode. I'm so glad I looked that up. Dude, it's all coming full circle. There's going to be a Malcolm in the Middle If Boys Were Girls reunion at SplatCon, October 19th and 20th in LA. I'm going to see Lane Torrin. I'm going to hang out with him, and he's going to be like, I don't know who you are. And I'm going to be like, that's cool. And I'm going to turn around and leave. No, I'm going to remind him relentlessly until he gets his people to whisk me away. But anyway, thank you guys so much for your support just through the years. I know you guys love this episode. I also love this episode. I love talking about it. So I don't know where it's streaming, but if you can go and it was on Netflix for a while. I don't know if it still is, but the episode's called If Boys Were Girls, and it's definitely worth the watch. As unbiased as I can be, I think it's one of the best episodes of television of all time. Even without me. In fact, without me with the different actors, maybe it would have been better. I don't know. Maybe I was holding it down. No, it's a great episode. You should go watch it. And again, there's Temperamental merch at lisafoils.com. I stupidly didn't know that I had to go in and fulfill every order individually. I have now done that, and orders are being shipped and they are arriving. And please take your picture and send it to me. I would love to see you in it. Again, SplatCon, October 19th and 20th. I'm going to be there. My band's going to perform. It's going to be amazing. Thank you guys so much for coming back week after week. I love y'all. Mwah! And you're not so big. That clap was so loud, my ears are ringing. Oh my god.